It ain't the left side or the right side, then it must be the FinSide. It ain't the left side.
Thank you, Solo D. Welcome to another episode of On the FinSide here with Kat. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Spreaker, iTunes, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and on Spotify. Check out our merch store on thefinside.threadless.com. Check out my Twitter handle, Brian Cat NFL, and Paul's Fanatic_pick. That's Fanatic with a PH. The Dolphins go down 31-21 here today to the Buffalo Bills. 6 down, 10 to go as the Dolphins fall to 0-6 at New Era Stadium in Buffalo. So just a brief recap of the game, and this looked like one of the bigger upsets of the day in in Buffalo. It's 14-9 at the beginning of the second half, and the Dolphins proceed to go on a 19-play drive after a Matt Hawk fake field goal that he runs to the 2-yard line. So it's first and goal at the 2. Then the next play, former Dolphin Jordan Phillips cuts into the backfield. It's a 10-yard loss. And then on the next play, Ryan Fitzpatrick throws an interception to Tre'Davious White. It seemed like Tre'Davious White was all over the field today, made 2 huge plays. One was the interception. The other one was when the Dolphins were down just 3 points in the fourth quarter, and Preston Williams caught a pass, and Tre'Davious White punched the ball out. Bills get the ball back. They end up going up 24-14, and that was pretty much all she wrote. But that doesn't mean that there weren't some good things going on in this contest, which we will get to. I do like, too, that they were very creative on offense and defense. If you looked at the defensive alignments, especially after Christian Wilkins was ejected from the game, they started using some really unique fronts. I mean, there were times where John Jenkins really was on the field a lot, but also Vince Beagle was rushing the passer from the outside. He was rushing him from up the middle. Jerome Baker was all over the field today, especially in terms of blitzing the quarterback. So I like that. And then offensively, they stuck with the run. So 23 carries from the running backs, over 4 yards a carry on those 23. Mark Walton, 17 carries, 66 yards, 14 carries for 66 yards on the day. This looks like a guy, he doesn't stand out in one particular area, but he seems like somebody at 22 years old who's really starting to get it. He was a good player at the University of Miami, too. Got into some trouble with the Cincinnati Bengals here over the last year, but looks like somebody who is going to be around for a long time. So let's take a look at the position-by-position breakdown. At quarterback, Ryan Fitzpatrick was having a really good game until that interception. It was a terrible throw. And anytime you've got Isaiah Ford lined up with Pro Bowl cornerback Tre'Davious White, you should probably leave that one alone. And Ryan Fitzpatrick certainly didn't do that. He finishes the game 23 for 35, 282 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. But if the Dolphins end up going up 21-9 there at the end of the third quarter, they very likely win this football game. And that's kind of the crazy part about this. There was a poll, actually, of whether or not we wanted the Dolphins to win this game, and from Dave, I think it was Dave Hyde, and it was at the end of the third quarter with the Dolphins when the Dolphins were winning, and still 60% of people said they would not have wanted the Dolphins to win. I was still sitting there in the sports bar with my friends and was very, very split on that. So at quarterback, I'll grade the position here at. Let's go with the B-. And the only reason it's not an A- is because Ryan Fitzpatrick threw that interception that ended up being the most costly thing in the game. But what we saw out of Fitzpatrick at quarterback is by being able to run the offense the way he was able to, he masked a lot of problems with the offensive line. If a tackle or a guard got beaten, he was able to turn that into a positive play. He wasn't sacked one time today because the only sack was on an Albert Wilson end around that Ed Oliver cut into the backfield for. So we're going to go with the B- there at quarterback. Running back, we've covered a lot there. Mark Walton, 14 carries for 66 yards, and seemed to have found a role for Kalen Ballage, too, as that short yardage back. 3 carries for 7 yards and a touchdown. Drake got in there, too, but it looks like he's very clearly second tier at this point to Mark Walton, and that's telling. Walton started his second game in a row. He had 14 carries, and Drake only had 6. And you would have thought that we would have seen a lot more of Kenyon Drake in the fourth quarter when the Dolphins were behind. Not to be. So at running back, I'm going to give them a B- as well. It probably would be a little bit higher if that yards per carry was elevated after Mark Walton's first 20-yard run, which was one of the Dolphins' first plays from scrimmage. But overall, I think we've got something here with Mark Walton. Wide receiver and tight end, and this is an interesting one because 3 players are really starting to differentiate themselves. Preston Williams, Mike Gesicki, and Devante Parker. And Preston Williams, right off the bat, on the second drive, he catches a 35-yard pass. He beats Bills cornerback number 39, Levi Wallace, on the play and gets downfield. So when we're trying to stack positives here at the skill positions, there are a lot to be stacked at this point because Preston Williams, now if you take a look at his stat line, he has almost 300 yards receiving in 6 games. So he's not quite on pace for 1,000 yards, but you throw on a couple 100-yard games in the next couple of weeks, then or throughout the rest of the year, you could be talking about somebody as an undrafted free agent. Might be challenging Devon Best for the Dolphins' all-time leading record for undrafted free agents. But definitely some talent there. Devante Parker, 3rd touchdown in the last 4 games, 5 catches for 50 yards in the game. Mike Gesicki, he's really been the punching bag for the Dolphins faithful here over the last year and a half. But 4 catches for 41 yards today, and he actually had a long catch of 27 yards pulled back too, so on a Jamarcus Webb holding call. So he's somebody that's continuing to emerge, and we're starting to see a lot of those spectacular high-pointing catches from Gesicki that we did not see earlier in his career. So something to keep an eye on there. Albert Wilson had that end around on the first Dolphins play from scrimmage. It did not work. He was sacked for 10 yards, and then he had a very nice 22-yard catch. So we'll see where he fits in. Jakeem Grant got on the field for a couple of end-around fakes, but that was about it. So when I look at the wide receiver and tight end position, the biggest thing, though, that drags this grade down is Preston Williams' fumble, because the Dolphins were just down by 3 points at that time, and when he fumbled that ball, Tre'Davious White comes and saves the day again. Then you can't have turnovers like that at wide receiver. Preston Williams is talented, but he's not good enough to continue to get away with that. So wide receiver and tight end, I'm also going to give them a B-. Along the offensive line, for the first time this season, by far, this was their best performance. It actually looked like an NFL offensive line for the first time. No sacks on Ryan Fitzpatrick at all. And I wonder how much of that has to do with Evan Boehm moving from right guard to center and taking over for Dan Kilgore, who was out with an injury. Whatever happened, I think the Dolphins owe it to themselves for this offensive line for at least next week to be Dieter at left guard, Evan Boehm at center, Shaq Calhoun at right guard, and Jesse Davis at tackle. Because overall, I thought Calhoun and Davis really did a good job too, especially Shaq Calhoun in the first half, because he went up largely against Ed Oliver, who is a very, very talented football player, 9th overall pick, a guy I wanted for the Dolphins ahead of Christian Wilkins at number 13. Didn't fall to that spot, but Shaq Calhoun, undrafted free agent. So the Dolphins have had 2 that really shined in this game. Jamarcus Webb is somebody who, it is what it is. The Dolphins have very few choices at that position, but he's somebody that whether he plays left tackle or he plays right tackle, doesn't give up a lot of sacks, but gets pushed back repeatedly throughout the play. So if the Dolphins in the offseason can take those resources with Jesse Davis, and if the Dolphins can get the tackle positions corrected, and I mean both of them in the offseason, Now you can push Jesse Davis to the inside, and your interior, you've got some talented players. You've got Dieter, you've got Evan Boehm, Shaq Calhoun, and Jesse Davis. Out of those four players, I think you may come away with three, at least a decent interior, if not three good starters. So good for them in this game. I'd say by far Jamarcus Webb was the worst one, but overall I'm going to give them a B. Along the front seven, obviously the biggest story is on the second defensive play of the game, Christian Wilkins is ejected. And this is telling because to me, to this point, I think he's a good player, but I don't know if he's anything more than a C-plus player, at least to this point, because he's not making a lot of plays in the backfield. He's taking up some double teams. He's stout. He's good. But I can't help but say when John Jenkins came in the game, I think he may have played a little bit better, especially in pass rush. So that bears watching. Obviously, Christian Wilkins, after the game, was very apologetic, was very emphatic that this was not going to happen again. And when you look at his career at Clemson, I do believe him on that. So bears watching. Vince Beagle and Taco Charlton each had a sack. And it seems like when they're both on the field at the same time, even though they don't set the edge all that well, to say the least, they can get some pressure on the edges against the quarterback. And we saw that. It made Josh Allen a little bit uncomfortable today. And Vince Beagle was not only rushing off the edge, but he was rushing up the middle too. So he's somebody that, if we're trying to collect players that can be startable in 2020, somebody to keep an eye on there. Same goes for Taco Charlton because he has far exceeded anything that Charles Harris has done. Charles Harris did get on the field shockingly today. I don't know why he would, but made exactly zero impact. This was not Raekwon McMillan's best day at linebacker, especially in the first quarter. There was an easy dump-off pass in the first drive, Josh Allen to fullback Patrick DeMarco. And instead of really all Raekwon had to do is push the guy out of bounds, or at least get an angle on him to where you force him back to the inside. He didn't do that. And DeMarco, the fullback, got the edge and went for 27 yards on a 2nd and 20. Bills end up getting 3 out of that drive. And if you look at the Bills' 2 longest runs of the day here, I was watching this just before I came on and started recording here. Raekwon was partially responsible for those too. So, but what I did like too is Jerome Baker was sent to the quarterback several times. One was the first drive to force a 4th down. They were blitzing him very much throughout the game, and good for him because I think he was a little bit more engaged. And if not for Josh Allen getting rid of the ball quickly and throwing an incompletion, Baker may have had a couple of sacks. He had 2 sacks last year at Buffalo. He may have repeated that. But by far, Jerome Baker's best game of the season. Sam Aguavion, we don't see a whole heck of a lot anymore. And I got to say that's probably fine now because Raekwon's playing well. Baker had a good game, and the Dolphins are going to use 5 or 6 defensive backs often. I don't know the snap count that'll come up tomorrow when I look at PFF and take a look at the All-22. But yeah, Aguavion is somebody I think is a 15 or 20 snap a game kind of piece player now. He hasn't stood out the way that he did in preseason, and that's kind of a shame on that because he's a fast, pretty talented young player. Frank Gore and Devin Singletary averaged 4.5 yards a carry on the game, but not combined, not a huge impact. I mean, I think they were really focused on Allen, but still a good game there from the Bills' run defense. But as far as the front seven is concerned, it's a shame that Christian Wilkins got ejected. Davin Gotcha had another good game too. So there was a little bit more pressure, but still not enough pressure. And that yards per carry of 4.5 from the Bills' 2 running backs, still not good enough. Overall, I'm going to let's go with a C+ for the front seven. At defensive back, Xavier Howard and Rashad Jones were out in this game, so we saw a lot of different players. In fact, Ryan Lewis, who was peeled off the street 4 days ago, started for the Dolphins. He was with the Bills, actually, at the beginning of the season, and he certainly paid the price. He wasn't up to the task, that's for sure. He gave up the go-ahead score for the Bills from John Brown, and there were at least two other plays where if Josh Allen could hit the broadside of a barn on that throw, we might be talking about Ryan Lewis on 3 touchdowns here. So I would like to see a little bit less of Ryan Lewis and a little less of Jamal Wiltz, who also struggled throughout the game, and a little bit more of Nick Needham, and maybe a little bit more of Chris Lammons too, who hasn't been great when he's been on the field, but I think he does have some physical potential there. So Josh Allen overall for the game, 16 for 26, 202 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. So a pretty good day at the office. And the most terrifying thing about the Dolphins secondary, in addition to the injuries, is they've only got they have one interception on the year on defense, and they have one forced fumble, and that was by Minkah Fitzpatrick, who's no longer here. So the Dolphins need to cause some turnovers. Some of that is to blame because the Dolphins have been behind so often. When the Dolphins led in this game in more in the second quarter than they did throughout the rest of the year combined. It was something like 3 minutes and 45 seconds they had this lead there. So on overall for the defensive backs, I'm going to give them a C- simply because I'm not going to give a higher grade for effort. This very easily could have been a 19 for 26 for almost 300 yards and 3 touchdown type of performance from Josh Allen, and that's certainly not good enough. But because he did miss on some of those throws and the defensive backs were good in run support, I'm going to stick with my grade on that, which is a C-. Special teams, obviously the biggest play of the game was the fake field goal run by Matt Hawk. He got the snap and he ran forward to the 2-yard line. It was at that point the 17th play of the drive, and the Dolphins had the ball up 5 points, 14-9, and 1st and goal at the 2, and could not punch it in. And that's a shame because that was a heck of a play there. If they hadn't make it, I would have said that's the stupidest play I've seen all year. The coverage units were great, and not a lot of kick and punt return of note for the Bills. And Preston Williams had about a 15-yard return too. So, and Jason Sanders nailed all 3 of his field goals, and Matt Hawk had a pretty good day there. So nothing bad to say about the special teams. I'm going to go ahead with a B for this unit. So my player of the game is going to be Mike Gesicki. 4 catches for 41 yards only, but he very easily could have had 5 or 6 catches. 2 were called back on penalties. And so one was a short pass and the other one was a 27-yard catch. So we could have been talking about a lot more. And this is a week after, he had 3 catches for 50 yards. So I like that he's high pointing the ball, getting up there and coming down with it. That's the reason the Dolphins made him a 2nd-round pick out of Penn State. My Coke Bus player of the game is going to be left tackle Jamarcus Webb. And very simply, he is the weak link of this unit here. And he has the hardest job, but he really struggled today against defensive end Jerry Hughes. And I think he ruined quite a few plays over there at that left tackle position. I can't wait to get that corrected in the offseason. In fact, if the Dolphins have the opportunity and they're with that Steelers pick, if it's high enough, my target guy right now is Georgia left tackle Andrew Thomas, who I think is phenomenal. Is going to be a 6 or 7 year Pro Bowler in the NFL. So that will do it for the breakdown of the Miami Dolphins Buffalo Bills matchup. Dolphins fall 31-21. Next, they have the Pittsburgh Steelers next week on Monday Night Football. A lot of different implications there. We'll be sure to break that one down. And check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Spreaker, iTunes, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. Check out our merch store on the FinSide.threadless.com. And if it's not on the right side and it's not on the left side, it is on the FinSide. Solo D, take us home.
It ain't the left side or the right side, and it must be the FinSide. It ain't the left side or the right side, and it must be the FinSide. Listen, Dolphins fans across the land all tuning in to see what